am Tamar Ish Shalom, and this is Jewish Crossroads. My guest today is Yair Golan, a former major general in the IDF and a political leader on Israel's left. Golan served for decades in the IDF, including as deputy chief of staff, and later entered politics. He is currently the leader of the Democrats Party. On October 7th, he went south in his personal car and took part in rescuing young people from the Nova Music Festival area. In recent years, he has become a prominent voice in debates over Israel's security, democracy, and moral direction, often stirring controversy for his direct style. Shalom, Mr. Yair Golan.
Shalom, Tamar, and hello to everybody.
Recently, you're voicing a position that's quite unusual in Israeli politics right now. You're essentially, I think, the only opposition leader who says clearly, yes, after the elections, we should form a coalition together with Arab parties like Ra'am. Other opposition leaders say explicitly that this won't happen. Their argument is that after October 7th, it's just impossible to form a coalition with a non-Zionist Arab party. Could you explain your position and what you think about the approach of your colleagues in the opposition?
I think that we must replace the current coalition, the current government, as soon as possible. And I think that the best thing for Israel is to forge a new coalition without any of the current coalition parties. This coalition, the current coalition, is a combination of deep corruption, national extremism, and nationalistic extremism, and religious parties that refuse to identify themselves as Zionists and to participate in the building of a nation. So therefore, I think that we must forge a new coalition. And if in order to get the 61 mandates which are needed to forge a new coalition, so what's the problem sitting with Mansour Abbas? Mansour Abbas is a leader that totally accepted the following principle. Israel is a Jewish state and at the same time free, democratic and egalitarian state. So I have no problem to sit with him. If you accept, the very basic nature of Israel, and if you demand as a minority equality, which sounds totally reasonable, and it's well, embedded in our biblical sources. So what is the problem, for God's sake? So therefore, I call all my possible partners. Let's say we have sat with Mansour Abbas previously, so we have no problem to sit with him in the future. And if we want to correct and to fix and to rebuild Israel, what is badly needed, therefore we need to admit that we cannot do it alone, and we must do it with anyone who is, who is willing to be with us.
For context, I'll just mention to our listeners that according to all polls in Israel, neither the opposition nor the coalition will be able to reach 61 mandates necessary for winning the next elections without the Arab party, Ra'am. But what your friends in the opposition are saying, that October 7th changed everything and that the Israeli voter won't vote for a coalition or opposition that will explicitly declare that it's going with an Arab party because of October 7th?
Well, this is really puzzling because according to our polls and our, researchers, this is not the problem. The liberal democratic public in Israel accepts Arab party as a natural thing. They have no problem with it. So I just wonder what is the problem? I can understand, the method or, the policy of Lieberman or Bennett. All right, they want to bring, more and more voters from the right. All right, I can understand it.
You need that
in order to win. I do not accept
it,
but I can understand it. But I truly don't understand why Eisenkot and Lapid refuse to accept, my own very natural, very simple principle. All right, we must replace this government. And I just wonder, let's assume that we get, alone without an Arab party, only 58 mandates. So what is next? Are we willing to launch another, election campaign, or we are willing to forge a new government? I think that the second choice is much better.
Do you think that the next elections in Israel will be free and fair?
No. I think that the current coalition will do its best in order to interfere in the free democratic process. And therefore, this is a matter for deep concern. And we need to protect our democratic system during the campaign, during the election day, and not necessarily Netanyahu will accept the results of the elections after the elections. Therefore, we must prepare for it.
It's a harsh accusation. So are you basing that argument on facts, on things that you see right now, or is it just something that you fear of?
It's both. I think that if you look at the determination of this coalition to destroy the Israeli democracy, it's absolutely clear. If you look at the sentiment in the streets, you would see more and more violent, sayings, more and more violence activity, and therefore I have no illusions. And anyhow, we need to prepare for the worst, not for the better.
You became widely known in Israel when, as Deputy Chief of Staff, you delivered a Holocaust Remembrance Day speech in uniform. And you said, and I'm quoting, "If there is one thing that frightens me when remembering the Holocaust, it is seeing disturbing trends that existed in Europe, especially in Germany 70, 80, and 90 years ago, and recognizing signs of them here in Israel today." Those remarks, as we both remember, sparked an enormous public controversy, and the speech likely cost you the chance to become a candidate for Chief of Staff. Do you regret saying it? And a decade later, do you still stand by that assessment?
Well, I do not regret, and the reason for that is that all the bad things I had predicted previously, materialize themselves. And what we see right now in Israel is a deterioration of our democratic system, our democratic life, and we are right now in a very dangerous situation. I think that Israel cannot exist but as a strong liberal democracy. We can see other nations around the globe, this principle of having, national life based upon deep corruption and extreme nationalism. Well, this is a really fine recipe for full destruction. We need to learn from history.
Well, from Israel to diaspora, we're speaking a few days after a pro-Hamas demonstration took place in New York in front of a synagogue calling for intifada and glorifying Hamas. And it's about a month after the horrific terror attack in Australia. The war in Gaza ended, but anti-Semitism certainly hasn't. And at this point, what responsibility should we as Israeli have for the safety of Jews in the diaspora? And what should that responsibility actually mean in practice? I mean, beyond slogans, what should the Israeli government be doing to support
This is a very good question, because Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people. This is the reason for the existence of our country. And as the homeland of all the Jewish people, we need to represent the Jewish people. So if most of the Jewish people live in a liberal democratic states with a liberal democratic culture, with a very impressive version of Judaism that has been developed in the last 150 years, mainly in the United States, in the UK, and other countries. So, in a way, the Prime Minister of Israel is not just the Prime Minister of Israel, he is also the Prime Minister of the Jewish people. And I think that these deep connections between the diaspora and Israel is part of our national security. Look what happened after October 7th. I think that we wouldn't be able to support our troops in the field, support the beaten communities in the south and in the north without the full obligation of the Jewish people. It's a kind of a miracle. It's a kind of, such an encouraging phenomenon. And therefore, we need to stick with the Jewish people. We need to keep this principle of being the homeland of the Jewish people as the most precious thing for the Jewish people. So when I see people in Israel or hear people in Israel talking in extreme nationalistic, deeply fundamental religious manner, well, this is a kind of a self-destruction. Truly a self-destruction. And so we need to get out from our, geographical boundaries and think in a much wider perspective about the destiny of the Jewish people. And the destiny of Jewish people, in order to secure this destiny, we must keep strong liberal democracy in Israel and elsewhere.
Let's talk a bit more about Jewish destiny, given the rise of anti-Semitism on both the left and the right in the U.S. and in Europe. Do you think Jews should be considering Aliyah more seriously than in the past?
Well, hopefully, yes. I'm willing to see more and more Jews, immigrate to Israel, making Aliyah. So I can say here, it's a wonderful option. And right now in Israel, please bring with you your liberal democratic values, your version of Judaism, in order to save Israel and in order to feel secure.
I'm curious about how you understand the idea of Zionism today. I mean, is the ideal that all Jews eventually live in Israel, or is there intrinsic value as well in Jewish life in the diaspora?
Look, I'm a practical person. There is no option that all Jews around the globe will live, all of them, in Israel. Let's admit it. Not necessarily it's so bad. So therefore, we need to think, globally. And globally, the meaning of that is to explore what are the right connections between Israel and the diaspora. And since I elaborated about it, just, a few seconds ago, I think it's absolutely clear that we need to stick with the principle. Israel is the homeland of all the Jewish people, whether you live inside Israel or elsewhere.
You know that there seems to be a line connecting what we saw on October 7th to what we've been hearing at protests around the world over the past 2 years. Because, the terrorists who murdered civilians in kibbutzim near Gaza, they called home and told their mothers that they killed Jews. Their recording of this. And, others referred to their victims as settlers. They didn't use the word Israelis. I mean, from their perspective of Hamas terrorists, there's no difference between a left-wing Jew in a border kibbutz and a right-wing Jew in Kiryat Arba. I mean, they're all settlers in their eyes. And in a similar way, at anti-Israel protests around the world, people aren't talking about 1967 or the occupation of the West Bank. They're talking about 1948, about the very existence of Israel as illegitimate. Doesn't that weaken the position of the Israeli left, which has been very focused on 67, while Palestinians and their supporters are focused on rejecting Israel's right to exist altogether?
Well, I think that thinking in terms of the past, this is counterproductive. We need to think in terms of the future. And the real story of the Middle East right now is the ongoing struggle between moderates and radicals. We must stick with the moderates. And from my perspective, Zionism is a very optimistic movement. It's about reinviting the Jewish people. It's about reestablishing a new Jew. So therefore, it's full of optimism. The meaning for me is, all right, we can change the nature of the Middle East. It's not a kind of, naive approach. I'm a very practical person. I commanded Judea and Samaria for more than 2 years. I fought all my adult life in Judea and Samaria and in the Gaza Strip. So I know the terrain and I know the people, Palestinians and Jews as well. And I can tell you the following. Looking, deep into the future, we must forge the alliance of the moderates against the radicals. I have no intention to say that we can finish the conflict tomorrow morning, but we can shape today the future of tomorrow. And in order to do that, we need to show the way, the direction. And from my perspective, now we approach the most important question concerning the destiny of Israel. Where are we heading? Annexation or separation? Annexation, from my perspective, is a full destruction of Israel because we cannot overcome the annexation of 5 million Palestinians. It's crazy. 2 million, in the Gaza Strip and 3 million in the West Bank. We cannot exist, after such an operation. So therefore, we must separate ourselves from the Palestinians, and that was the policy of the Zionist project since 1937. That's the reason why we accepted the partition plan in 1947. This is the reason why Ben-Gurion refused to accept the recommendation of Israeli generals by the end of the independence war. These generals asked him, to conquer the West Bank, and he refused to do that. So we must understand separation or annexation is the most important question concerning the destiny of Israel. I think that only by separation we can save the Zionist project.
But once again, what I'm asking, you're talking about an optimistic Zionism. Is it naive when you do not have a partner? I mean, when you see these demonstrations talking about Zionism itself in 48 and not about 67,
I do not care.
Do you have a partner with the Palestinians?
I do not care.
Internationally with the international left?
Tamar, I do not care whether I have a partner or not. What is interested me is only one thing. What is best for the Jewish people? What is the best thing for Israel? And for us, the best thing is to separate ourselves from 5 million Palestinians. I'm the first to admit that after, having this, after taking this principle, you need to elaborate more. All right, was this the political arrangement for that? And here I think that looking, deep into the future, the two-state solution is the best solution for us. But in order to reach the two-state solution, we must take into account the trauma of October 7th. And therefore, we must come through a kind of a midway. And in this midway, we need to reach civil separation with security responsibility. Civil separation in order to mitigate the friction between two hostile populations. Civil separation in order to provide less and less opportunities for radicals. Civil separation in order to show the way to the two-state solution. But at the same time, we should not transfer responsibility for security too early to the Palestinians. We need to keep freedom of action, including land operation, in the West Bank, inside the Gaza Strip, as long as we think that there are Palestinian factions that threaten Israel.
Okay, let's stay in Gaza and go back to the morning of October 7th. You were a major general in the reserves already over 60, not a young man, and yet you got...
Oh, still young, Tamar.
Yeah.
Not so young.
Young in spirit, of course. You armed yourself, you took your car, you drove south toward the Nova Festival area to try and rescue young people from the killing field. 2 years later, how do you remember that day and your decision? What do you take with you from that day?
It's the most horrific day I ever experienced. And I think that I fought a lot in my life, and I saw a lot. And I can tell you what I saw in the Nova Festival occasion. Well, that was the most horrific scene I ever saw. But I can tell you that by the end of October 7th, in twilight time, a kind of a new feeling emerged in my heart. And this is a deep rage. A rage upon the Hamas, and a rage upon the Hamas and what Hamas did to my beloved IDF. But also a deep rage on my own government. On my own government that led us to a situation of weakness that was projected to the region, that was projected to our worst enemies in an irresponsible manner, while ignoring all the red lights that was lit by, the IDF and others. And this is a kind of a shame, and this is a kind of something we need to fix, and this is something we need to swear that won't happen again. And therefore, we need to replace this government as soon as possible, and we need to take Israel back to the path of liberal democracy.
When you compare Israel today to where it was on October 6th, day before October 7th, in terms of security and also internally as a society, are we in a better place or worse? How do you assess this moment we're in compared to 2 years ago?
Unfortunately, we didn't learn, we learned nothing out of this terrible experience, and unfortunately, we do nothing with our military achievements. What is the failure? What is the conception that led to October 7th? It's about two things. This, crazy thinking, crazy idea that Hamas is an asset, and the PA is a kind of a negative entity that we need to get rid of. This notion that we can handle or manage the conflict. Well, it's so stupid. Conflict needs to be solved, not to be managed. So I think that my perception, which I wrote about it, during 2019 and 2020, over and over again, is the following. We need to fight, and we need to destroy the military wing of Hamas, or we need to reach some sort of a diplomatic agreement. Because conflicts need to be solved, and we need, any good government of Israel need to fortify the military achievements with diplomacy, with policy, with national policy. And right now we have no national policy.
But Mr. Golan, I know it's hard to compliment a political opponent, especially when the elections are around the corner. But when you compare Israel today to 2 years ago, don't you feel like complimenting both the security apparatus and Prime Minister Netanyahu for what has been done against Hezbollah, against Iran, and weakening Hamas, not totally dismantling it? I mean, there is a difference in Israel's security stand in the region, isn't there?
Well, I think that the IDF have reached, prominent achievements in all fronts. But the role of the government is to do something with the military achievements. And this current government refused to do anything with the military achievements. I would like to provide, a few examples. All right, we have beaten Hamas, the military wing of Hamas. What is next? How to replace Hamas? You cannot replace Hamas without building an alternative governing entity inside the Gaza Strip. You cannot demilitarize Hamas without having someone to replace Hamas inside the Gaza Strip. So I can tell you that since the fourth or the fifth month of the war, any reasonable government could work hard with the region and with the international arena in order to build this alternative. Look at the situation with Iran. What we need right now with Iran is a kind of a new JCPOA. We don't have anything with Iran. So if you want to make sure that Iran won't reach any nuclear capability, military nuclear capability in the future, you must have some sort of an agreement with Iran. And right now, when Iran is so weak, we could fix all the failures or all the downsides of the JCPOA, the former JCPOA from 2015. For example, we could have a new agreement that put, much stronger supervision on the nuclear sites. We could lengthen the time period of the agreement. We could put, much restriction on launching capabilities, and we could sanction Iran for any terrorist villain activity in the region. All right, let's do it. But no one in Israel right now even starts such a discussion with the Americans, with the rest of the nations that were part of the JCPOA, Germany, the UK, France, nothing, just nothing. What we have right now is a kind of a vacuum. And what is happening, because there is no true vacuum in nature, the U.S., for example, moved forward with its own interests. And from American perspective, it's all about economy. So President Trump doesn't care, whether, Turkey or Qatar will be back inside the Gaza Strip, something which is really negative from an Israeli perspective.
So let's move on with the Trump administration and Washington. What do you think about President Trump, the Trump administration, and the way that it is dealing with Israel and the Middle East?
Well, I think I do understand the American policy quite well, because the biggest, the bigger picture is the IMEC, the India Middle East Corridor. This is, the American plan in order to counter the road and the belt Chinese plan. So this is the big story of the Middle East, in the world, in the global arena. And I think Israel should look at it as an opportunity, a wonderful opportunity, because today we can forge the alliance of the moderates with Egypt, with Jordan, with Saudi Arabia, with the United Emirates, with Bahrain, with Oman, Morocco, and maybe others. So now we have a wonderful opportunity, and what we need is a kind of a diplomatic initiative. We could make Israel, according to the IMEC, as a corridor, from Israel through Jordan, and from Jordan to the Arab Peninsula, which could, enhance the Israeli economy dramatically. But when we do nothing, the U.S. move forward, and they will find, the Americans will find, other routes in order to secure their economical initiatives. So we must be right now much more active. We must take initiative, and we must be part of the IMEC.
As you know, American politics is undergoing tectonic shifts in its approach to Israel on both the right and the left. Right now on the extremes, but they're growing. If your camp wins the next election, what needs to change in the way that Israel engages with the U.S. administration and with American politics?
Well, first and foremost, we need to readopt the bipartisan approach. One of the faults of, one of the disasters of Netanyahu governments is to hug the Republicans and to make the Democrats as a kind of a rival. This is a shame. We cannot predict the outcome of the political processes inside America. And therefore, we must remain bipartisan. I can tell you, we must work with Democrat or Republican administration as well. I think it's a fundamental thing in the national security of Israel. So this is the first thing we need to do. The second thing we need to do is to re-emphasize the values that connect both nations. I can tell you I had a long diplomatic military diplomacy experience, and mainly with American generals and American prominent figures in the Pentagon. And I can tell you it was always, we were very proud about it because it was about values, not just about interests. And therefore, I think that the very basic nature of America is a democratic nature. It's about the Constitution. It's about respecting every citizen as a citizen. And based upon these principles, we can rebuild this, value structure for both nations in order to reestablish the most important aspect of national security in Israel. And this is the support of America to Israel.
Mr. Golan, you're known for being, let's say, very direct. Some would say for having a big mouth. Toward the end of the war, you made a statement that caused a major backlash when you said that a sane country shouldn't be killing children as a hobby. After the criticism, you clarified that you were not accusing the IDF of doing this and that you were talking about the government and its policy. Did you learn something from that episode? And do you think that someone who wants, to lead real political change needs to be more careful, more measured in the way he
On the contrary, you cannot win by being all the time in the defense. Yes, I speak up and I fight for our democracy. I'm not an extremist. The reality is very extreme right now. And the one who brought us to this extreme situation is this current government. I fight for liberal democratic values, for a strong liberal democracy in Israel. And this is the only thing that can secure our existence. So it is an existential struggle between the liberal elements in the Israeli society and the radical elements and corrupted element in the Israeli society. And we must win. So I don't understand, this. I can understand my opponents that want to, to make me radical. But I don't understand my partners. We need to fight, all of us, together. We need to build together the liberal democratic camp of Israel. In a way, it's resembled me the American Revolution War in 1776. It was not about radicals that fought against the British regime. It was about true democratic people who want to secure their rights. In some cases, it's not a symbol of radicalism. It's a symbol of true democratic values that must be protected.
But, over the past few months, quite a few American Jews I've spoken with have asked me about the next Israeli elections. And many of them are surprised that even after October 7th, Netanyahu still seems to have a real chance of winning. Could part of the explanation be the weakness of the Israeli opposition, that even after the greatest security and diplomatic, failure in Israel's history, it hasn't managed to translate that into a real tectonic shift in the political map?
Well, of course, I cannot portray it as a great achievement. And of course, we need to fix something. And therefore, I ask my possible partners over and over again, all right, up to now, we didn't succeed. So let's do something different, dramatically different. Let's forge a new political body, liberal and democratic, that will look like an alternative, a ruling, alternative. This is something we must provide our supporters. This is something that will bring with it much hope. And I think today people in Israel are looking for hope. So let's give them hope. Let's give hope to the people. And we can do it by unifying all our capabilities in order to replace this government.
What would you want American Jews to understand about the Israeli society at this moment? What role do you see for them in the day after the war? It is a fantastic
question. Look, we are in a change of eras. The era of self-delusion and constant lying is diminishing. The era of decisiveness appears in the horizon. In the era of decisiveness, we will need any possible support from the Jewish world in order to determine our destiny, whether we will be a strong liberal democracy or a kind of authoritarian, theocratical country. It's about who is going to lead Israel, decent people or corrupted people. It's about what is the nature of the country, liberal or, extreme nationalism with a violent approach to any problem in the public arena. So we are in a very special time, and this is a time to be active. So, yes, I ask the Jews in the United States, my brothers and sisters, please support heavily the liberal democratic faction in the Israeli society in order to reinvigorate the Israeli state as the way it was founded, as a liberal democracy, and at the same time, the homeland of all the Jewish people, including conservative Jews and Reform Jews.
I mean, it's interesting, because in a recent interview I had with Ilan Goldenberg from the Biden administration, he argued that the 2026 election could be a breaking point for the relationship between Israel and the left Zionist Jews. He said that, if there won't be a big change, many of them will simply give up on this connection. So what is your take on that? And what is your message to left Zionist Jews who are finding it harder after the war to differentiate between their opposition and criticism of this government and its actions and their general support
this is the time,
the past of Israel?
This is the time to take responsibility. This is the time to be active. This is the time to save Israel. And if you think that Israel, the existence of Israel, is still important to Jewish people, and I think 99.99% of the Jewish people still think that Israel is important, all right. So let's be part of this process of re-establishing Israel as a liberal democratic state.
As we're heading towards the end of our conversation, I'd like to ask you a more personal question. Did October 7th in any way change the way you perceive your Jewish identity or your Israeli identity?
Well, that in a way it's a strength, my Jewish identity. And I think that we need to invite a new Jewish identity in Israel, much more alike the Jewish identity in liberal democratic countries. And I think what we have right now in the United States is quite fantastic. Because when I take, the thinking of people like Jonathan Sachs from the UK or the Rabbi Soloveitchik and many, many others, I think they reinvite Judaism with a strong liberal democratic sense.
Okay, Mr. Golan, we've reached the final part of our conversation, the Jewish Crossroads questionnaire. 5 quick and fun questions. Are you ready?
Totally ready.
What is your earliest Jewish memory?
Oh, when I was a small kid, I think at about 6 or 7, I used to go with my father in the high holidays to the synagogue. And it was about 2 synagogues, a Yemenite synagogue and Ashkenazi synagogue. And we used to move, rapidly between the 2 synagogues in order to, we had a kind of a competition. Who could understand the cantor in the Ashkenazi accent and in the Yemenite accent? And I can tell you, we understood nothing.
If you could meet any Jewish figure from history, ancient or modern, who would it be and why?
Well, from antiquity, I think it's Isaiah, my favorite prophet. And in modern time, for sure, David Ben-Gurion, the most prominent.
You mentioned Ben-Gurion. I thought you would pick him.
Why? No, the most prominent, no doubt, the most prominent and visionary leader of the Jewish people, and I think one of the greatest figures during the 20th century.
What is your favorite or most meaningful Jewish tradition?
I love Passover, and I'm the one who's responsible for the Seder. I love doing that.
Do you continue after the meal or not? I mean, there are 2 types of Israeli families.
Come on, we complete the Agadah until the last song.
Okay. If you could jump 100 years into the future in 1 sentence only, what would you hope to see for the Jewish people?
Israel as a liberal and democratic state with much connection to its roots.
From a sentence to a word, what's one Jewish word? It can be Hebrew, English, Yiddish, Yemenite, whatever, that feels particularly meaningful to you right now.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And it's a good song by Leonard Cohen.
Toda rabba. Yair Golan, thank you for being with me.
Thank you very much. Toda rabba.
Well, that's it for this episode of Jewish Crossroads. We'd love to hear from you. Write to us at jewishcrossroadspod@gmail.com. Hit follow on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. And if you enjoyed the conversation, please rate us. It helps us reach new listeners. Thank you to Samuel Hyde, Noah Slepkov, and Tomer Ratzabi Bar for recording, editing, and assisting in producing this episode. We'll meet again, same place, same journey, with a new voice. See you soon.